Mrs. Heiliger?
Point of information. I just want to put on the record that I don't want us to start precedent where if we don't like something that's being said, that we just shut it down. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I wasn't a little concerned with the testimony because it read more like an advertisement than it did anything else. But at the end of the day, we are a deliberative body, and I would prefer if we allow things, because we've sat in here and allowed testimony that ran for an hour, and we listened to every word, whether we were for or against it. So I'm just saying, don't create precedent where we are shutting down things, whether we personally like them or not. Because like I said, I was concerned because it seemed like an ad more than anything else. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Senator Francis Heiliger. Senator Leiden, Senator Alma Francis Heiliger, you're recognized for your 7 minutes.
Thank you. Good afternoon to my colleagues, to the testifier, to the central staff, those in the audience. First of all, I did enjoy your testimony where it gave a lot of information about the various areas within our educational system that you will be attempting to tackle. One of the things that I wanted to touch on is a little bit more in regards to dealing directly with students. For example, we have a lot of fights in these schools that directly impact individuals' education. What are your plans to really tackle that in regards with partnering, whether with the police department, improving monitors training? What are some of the things you're going to do? Conflict resolution courses? Mm-hmm. Tell me a little bit about that.
So, very good question, Senator. School safety is very important to us at the Department of Education, and we recognize that the increase in fights in the territory was not really something unique to the territory. When we did our research, many of the schools that transitioned back to face-to-face instruction experienced those challenges with the students acclimating back into face-to-face learning. However, behind every altercation that you see on the campus, there's a root.
Okay.
One of the things that we've discussed is how do we get to that child who is experiencing those behavioral challenges, and what support systems can we put in place to help them to do the conflict resolution, yes, or coping with whatever issues they may have outside of school or in school. And so we are engaging in some memorandum of understanding with some local providers to have individual counseling and therapy being provided to students as one alternative. As I mentioned, we are looking at our tiered approach to discipline. One of the things that I would like to see, Senator, is those children who are in constant altercations and issues, let's do a interest survey. Let's find out what they really like to do. Okay. Where do you see yourself when you finish school? And maybe partner with local entities so that your suspension is you go work at such and such a business for the time that you're out. You know,
agree.
different creative ways to really.
I agree with that creative aspect, because I have never been a supporter of telling a child, I am not going to educate you because you're bad.
Right.
That makes no sense to me. I also wanted to touch a little bit on Parent University, and you talked about that. Do you think that some of the very issues that you spoke about that potentially might be triggering these young people within Parent University, will that be an aspect to assist parents with dealing with these students, or is that something you already are planning or have in the works to do?
Well, that's really the districts that would have to plan that, Senator, but those are things that we want to be able to provide to parents. Those memorandums of understanding that we are engaging in will include family therapy as well.
Okay.
Because we recognize that our parents are struggling. And so being able to, do a survey with parents to see where their interests are and where they feel that we could support them, and really establishing through the individual plans in schools, different things that they could do with their parents unique to their buildings.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Well, I know the last time education was here, I spoke about my concern about the funding per ratio per child, and we calculated it at about $12,000 per child, and I made the comparison to when I had sent my own nephew to private school, which was about $8,500 compared to the $12,000.
Correct.
spent on a child in public school versus private. What do you think needs to be done so that more of that funding is directly impacted to the child as opposed to being put into the upper administrative aspect, when I am one of those that is advocating for more funding to go directly to the child in getting their education?
So I think we've started that with the site-based management,
Okay.
that we're giving them the flexibility to design programs unique to the individual needs. And the superintendents have a responsibility to review those plans, provide recommendation for things that need to be changed. But the goal is really to get that funding into the hands of the teachers to advocate for that change
2
that we want to
minutes.
see in student outcomes.
Okay, thank
Yes.
you. One of the things I had a chance to look at some data in Vivis, and it was ironic. This letter from the young lady that read like a ad or resume, there was an aspect of it that spoke to the reading and the data. And that's something that very much concerned me because I had originally seen the information through Vivis. And with that, when the reading level of our children are below in such high categories, what are some of the things that you are seriously going to implement? Because reading and comprehension and literacy and math are the cornerstone of a child's education. And I need to know what the education department is going to do to really tackle that, because if we can't fix that, all the money we throw at education is not going to matter. We need to hone in and explain to me what your vision is to get that sorted out.
So, very good question, Senator, and it is a concern. And we definitely have a lot of work to do around literacy and numeracy. One of the key things is to empower our schools to really dive into the data. You got to look at your data. This morning, I looked at some iReady data. iReady is the intervention program that we have in the territory, where students are able to utilize that platform to bridge some of the learning loss that we have experienced. And just in an analysis of the territory, we have high percentages of our students that are 2 grade levels, 1 grade level behind. And so with the site-based management, that data is what will drive what the schools come up with in their plan to correct or intervene. But I have to say this, we have a lot of programs that are across the nation, right here in the territory.
Okay.
Our issue isn't the programs, it's them being used with fidelity.
Yes.
And
Well,
so we have to monitor instruction.
And I agree with that. And some of the programs, like, for example, IEP, that's
Time.
Yeah. I'm going to be fair since we're 7 minutes. Thank you so much for answering the questions.
Thank you.
I am not a member of the committee, but I am sure once I'm on the Senate floor, you will get a affirmative from me.
Thank you,
Thank you
Senator.
so much.
Thank you very much. Senator Francis Heiliger, you're recognized for your 5 minutes.
My colleagues, the people of the territory, to the testifier. Ms. Thomas, how are you?
Good.
Good. I had a conversation with someone, and they were talking about you're very soft-spoken at times. And I said, sometimes soft-spoken people carry a big stick, so it doesn't matter. The key is to get the job done, and that is what I care about. My colleague just spoke a little bit on the questioning about prosecutorial powers within your agency. And I distinctly remember I went to a meeting with your predecessor, and he made it very clear that we don't want prosecutorial powers. Our job is to investigate. That position belongs to the AG's office. And your job is to focus on the investigation and turn over the information. But the problem that they had, like my colleague just spoke about, you have all of these great audits that have so much information, and then the public is actually expecting something to be done. And a lot of times for some of them, outside of some agencies fixing internal issues, sometimes you hear about the criminal aspects where people are very disappointed when things don't proceed. And my response to the individual was, that is where our Constitution comes in, where we could potentially write within our Constitution the AG's position, whether it's elected or not, so that you wouldn't have this back and forth as to who should prosecute what, when, where, why, and who. But my question to you is, in this specific position, what are some of the things that you see that are glaring issues that would stop you from doing your best ability in bringing forward the information needed to help potentially clean up some of these agencies through the audits you guys create?
Okay, well, again, it takes people to get the audits done. And I mean, the task is so great. We can't get to all the agencies. Imagine that there are countless executive branch agencies that we have, and along with the instrumentalities. On the federal system, there's like an inspector general for most of each one of those. I can't tell you that we have an auditor for each one of the agency. What I would love to do, hopefully, is basically section the agencies out and literally just kind of tell a couple of auditors, this is your job to focus on what's in the news concerning the Department of Health and Human Services, hospital. So, and cluster them that anything that comes out, that they're the ones to put their eyes on it. So that is one thing.
Well, when you spoke earlier about potentially the partnering of the support of the white collar crime unit and potentially partnering with your agency, what are some of the things do you see that could possibly help you specifically if that were to be the case?
If we get an attorney that directly from the Department of Justice working with the task force that addresses our issues as they come up, that would make the process quicker. If we get more investigators, because understand now that our audits would go straight to that task force, that would be their sole focus. So we could write and issue 100 reports. If the Department of Justice does not have that task force, a group of people, if it's not them, then who's really looking at the findings? Who's looking at it? That means that maybe we just don't have anyone that exists that's solely devoted to looking at these type of.
And that makes a lot of sense, because I'm going based on a lot of times when these audits come out, and even myself who read them, I'm saying, but wait a minute, what about this? What about that? And then we're not hearing any follow-up whatsoever. And then you get a community that's frustrated because they're like, if this Inspector General's office is doing all this work to pinpoint these problems and we're not getting any follow-through, then what's the purpose? And I think that's where a lot of the public's frustration is at times. So I do applaud your audits from this agency. I love to get information and data from them. But I think we also need to focus on a lot of assisting you with getting the tools you need, as well as beefing up our AG's office and even writing our Constitution so that particular position is an elected one, so it's not specifically beholden to any particular governor in and out, so that I think more prosecutions would take place based on merit and not decision making. So thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the additional time.
Thank you very much, Senator Francis Heiliger. Point of inquiry, Senator Gittins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, IG nominee, I too applaud your efforts and your advocacy for that of the white collar crime unit under DOJ. But what I want to hear from you is you telling this body to properly fund you so that you can have your investigation.
Thank you very much, Senator Blyden. Senator Francis Heiliger, you're recognized for your 3 minutes.
Thank you. Good afternoon. How are you, colleagues, testifier, people of the territory? What do you want to go back on the Port Authority board? I mean, it's one thing to get nominated, but clearly you're here because you said yes. Why do you want to do it?
Because I've been involved in the community and I've gained a lot of knowledge in the community in regards to issues and stuff that's impacting the island of St. John, especially my academic background, working in the government for over 25 years. And I'm aware of the challenges at Viper in the operation and administrative areas.
Okay. And as was mentioned, you're also a member of the GRS board.
Correct.
Do you think that if you are now back on Port Authority, which is also a very important board here in the territory, what can make me feel secure if I'm going to vote in your favor that you can significantly handle these two positions that are very vital?
Well, I've been doing it before, so I think I can handle it. I've been doing them before.
Well, doing it before and doing
I don't see anything is
excellent.
going to impact one from the other.
So it's just
One is a fiduciary responsibility. The other one is working on behalf of the Port Authority, make sure that we develop the infrastructures. We make sure we facilitate travel. We provide safe and modern seaports and ports
okay.
for people. So I think they're not the same. I don't think it will be hectic.
The reason why I asked
doing
the
both
question
of them.
is because I am one of those people that I am 100% in support of people serving, but I also want to make sure that certain positions that you might be on multiple boards, and can you give your all and your best so that we could get the very best out of these boards on behalf of the people?
I think so.
Okay, well, thank you. Quick question. One of the things they talked about was airlines. Do you support potentially in some future that, say, the Virgin Islands have their own airline, Virgin Islands Air? Just what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I don't have a problem with it. Once it's safe for the public. It's a safe and you have experience in flying and that kind of stuff. But I don't have a problem with it.
Okay.
Once it meet all the FAA requirements.
And we could afford it.
And we can afford it.
Okay. My last question, because the Virgin Islands Port Authority. May I finish my last question? Thank you.
Yes, you may, Senator.
The Virgin Islands Port Authority, if not, is one of the larger landlords in the territory, if not probably the largest. There is a huge portfolio of property that is out for lease. How do you guys handle in creating the leases between the different locations? And sometimes I have had conversations where some might feel that there's disparity between one lease versus the other. How do you guys handle that as basically the landlords?
Well, there's committee meetings in regards to like properties. So that stuff is vetted in the property committee.
Okay.
And then it comes to properly vetted. And then it comes to the full board.
Well, how many members would be in a smaller committee?
A smaller committee is about 4 people.
Okay.
And the board consists of 9.
Okay.
So it's vetted there with the staff, and then it comes to the full board.
So
sometimes it does not come to the full board.
Oh.
But it's vetted there first, and then.
But you say sometimes it doesn't come?
Some of them. And I can't tell you right now specifically which one.
I was not aware of that. Okay. Well,
maybe because they don't have the proper paperwork.
Okay.
They probably have some kind of legal matter in regards to it.
Oh, okay. Well, so it's cleared out and it's no longer processed. Okay, that's something different, because I thought you meant like those 4 people made the decision and it didn't come to the rest of you.
No.
Okay.
No.
All right.
Because the process it goes through.
Thank you for clearing that part up. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the additional time.
Thank you, Senator Francis Heiliger. Senator, you're the sponsor, Senator Bryan, so I'll save you for last. Senator Alma Francis Heiliger, you're recognized for your 5 minutes.
you.
You're welcome.
Good afternoon, good evening to my colleagues, to the people of this territory. I rise in support of some of these pieces of legislation in this block, but I will be spending the bulk of my time speaking on Bill number 34-0197. I speak directly to the people of this territory because this piece of legislation is an affront to the residents of the United States Virgin Islands. I think it is disrespectful. I think it is unfortunate. And the fact that anyone could come in front of this legislature and ask us to alter laws to ratify a contract, I am very, very disappointed that this is even within this institution. I'm very disappointed. We are setting a very dangerous precedent if we ever allow this here to be passed. And if any of ETA you attempt to do this, I'm going to beg the governor to veto this madness. And I'm telling you point blank. Point blank. You cannot come into this institution if you have a contractual dispute and ask the legislature to change the laws to make a contract right. You can't do it. We are wrong for doing this. I cannot accept these kind of behaviors. And everybody's going to sit here and say, oh, it's not going to cost the government any more money. It's going to give us more money. So let's calculate. For the $60 million that they gave in gross receipts tax, what happens if the federal government returns it? What happens if they get it? What is 5% of $60 million? So for $3 million, are you going to sell out your soul? That's what you're going to do? So for people that came into this territory that fully knew the law of this land when they landed here and followed the FEMA funds, they knew the law of the land. But because they want to go and alter this here right now, we must come change the law so they could go take us to court. Because our local government already told us, we're done with this madness. We are not attempting to reopen this situation. But what you want to do? Change the law, and they're now going to use this law to sue us in court. That's what they're going to do. And we're going to be helping them. This is madness. What happened to the average Joe Blow local person that went to the polls and voted for every one of us in here? What happened to them? When they have a $20,000 and $30,000 contract that they have a dispute with, you think they could come up in here with a lawyer and ask us to change the law? They can't do it. But you're worried about those that vote for you. You're worried about people that came into this territory, knew the law already, but want us to change it so they could go sue us. I'm not co-signing on this kind of madness. We have to have some kind of standing ground in this institution and fight for the people that put us here to represent them. I am not co-signing on this. This is craziness. And then you're going to have an amendment. Okay, look at this amendment. In section 1, line 4, insert in accordance with a government agency's contractual requirement after gross receipts tax. Did that contract say that the government was contractually obligated to do anything? But you want to ratify it in the law to say that they are. Read. I could read and comprehend the madness that's going on here. We cannot keep doing this here. Anybody that has an issue with a contract, if the contract section simply says any part of it that is not applicable to law, guess what happened? It is null and void. If you have an issue whether it's bad faith on our part or their part, that is why we have 3 branches of government: legislative, executive, and judicial. Anyone has an issue with a contract, you go to court. You don't come to the legislature and say change the law so we could go sue you, so you could make the contract right, and then we could use that law now to come after us. What happened when the government say, you know what, we ain't doing this here? They're going
1
to
minute.
sue us. That's what they're going to do. And we sitting down here talking madness about it's money. Money? We going to sell our soul for money? Nobody ain't elect me to sell my soul for a dime. And it's not going to happen here. I'm not co-signing on none of this. At what point are you just standing for something that's right? What point? I don't have a problem with how this law is if it's going to be henceforth. Okay? I do not have an issue with that. But when you are going to amend it, you're going to amend it to say point blank, this section applies to any matters involving claims for disaster assistance that is pending before the government of the Virgin Islands and after the effective date of this act. I sat in this institution when 2 major companies come here and basically tell us to our face, it's for them. They came here and told us. So when one of my colleagues is going to say, he don't see a big deal because it ain't going for no particular company. When the 2 companies came here and told us it's for them. Maybe you wasn't to that meeting, but I was. We have to stop it. Protect the people that put us here to protect them. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Senator Francis Heiliger. Francis Heiliger, you're recognized for your point of information.
I would like to put on the record, and I stated it before, I do not have a problem with that legal opinion. Based on the specific questions that were asked, I think it is perfectly in line with the original bill. And like I said, the original bill, if it stood without this amendment that opens the door for special interests, when that was written, if I recall, it was for the bill prior to the amendment. So don't put something out to the public. I don't understand what's happening here. Okay? If that amendment was not put in here, everything would have been fine with me. Because from henceforward, we would have been able to itemize anyone with federal funds, and that would have been the end of it. But the minute you put in the amendment, it created a lot of chaos and special interest as far as I was concerned. Thank you very much.